Hey, I'm Eric from MountinTop9, and you're listening to Vieira Vault.
Grab a jam, I swear, this is down. It's my podcast. This guy's insane. Rock your brain. It's just a sound. A Steve Vieira Vault.
Schmack-a-magob, another Vieira Vault. Ain't been missing any weeks for months. Thank you, Quarantine. And here's part 2 of Eric Anderson from MountinTop9. Us talking about the discography of Sabbath after the 70s. Let's get into it, because this one's a long one and a good one. Let's do this. All right, now Ozzy finally leaves. Someone we didn't discuss, Ozzy did leave before Never Say Die and came back. But this time, he was fired.
Yeah.
And thanks to Sharon Osbourne, Tony met Dio. And they released what I consider perfection.
Yeah.
A different type. It doesn't have that organic feel of 70s Sabbath. It has a precise, and I already know your favorite song off this album. I've seen you praise it a lot, and I don't blame you. Though they did not play that song when I saw the Heaven and Hell tour. But we're talking, of course, about Heaven and Hell. Ronnie James Dio is now in the band. Bill Ward is still in the band, but it doesn't sound like Bill Ward to me. He's too in the pocket. I don't know if because he was a little more sporadic in the 70s. So this doesn't have
as much of that loose feel. Yeah.
Right. It's playing for the song just to make it perfect. You know, and I'll never forget hearing this for the first time. You want to talk about, whoa, what is this? After living with, because by then that was it. By Never Say Die, going back to all the stuff, at 1979 already knew Black Sabbath is the best band ever for me. And then going into Heaven and Hell, I was just floored. I just couldn't believe this was Black Sabbath. It was. But if you really look at the context, it's really Iommi, Ward, and Dio, because Geezer wasn't there.
He came back. Yeah, he had left the band for a little bit.
All he really contributed was Neon Nights.
Right.
Because they recorded it here in Miami at Criteria Studios, Technical Ecstasy as well. My band rehearsed one block from there, and I would sit in front of that place and just stare at it going, man, Sabbath was here. It's just such a special Criteria Records. And something we didn't discuss either, during the recording of Technical Ecstasy, the Eagles were recording Hotel California. And a lot of times they had to stop recording because Black Sabbath was too loud.
Right.
They had to wait till Sabbath was done so they can go back to recording their song. But anyway, Heaven and Hell. I know how you feel about this, but let the people know what you feel about this album.
I just think this album, like you said already, it's perfection. It just took the band to a whole new level, and everything about it seems like it's perfectly, it's just a perfectly written and recorded album. The sound, they've got Martin Birch, helping produce. And I think that that's a big part of it too, because the sound quality, it's such a jump from Never Say Die has this, I don't know, it's just a thin, tinny garage sound production, even though there were some really grand tracks on that, like Johnny Blade. I can't get it out. Johnny Blade, Shockwave. You've got these songs that are just so very progressive sounding for Sabbath, but the sound quality is very garage, and then you get to Heaven and Hell, it's perfectly produced. It sounds like a piece of art. It has this sheen to it, sound quality. And when you hear Neon Nights for the first time, it's just like a whole new band. I mean, even though it is called Black Sabbath, and it is Black Sabbath, it's a different Black Sabbath. It's just not the same anymore. It's a different band. This album, I really hold this one in the highest esteem. I would have to say, if I had to pick one and say that's the best album, this is the one I would pick overall, just because how great it is from start to finish. it may not be one that I put on all the time to listen to, but if I just had to pick one, I'd say that's the one where they just were firing on all cylinders. So
yeah. Most people I've discovered online, they don't really pick Heaven and Hell as the best Dio one. Man, I'm like, I'm perplexed. That to me is like the greatest Black Sabbath Dio album. I think, and nothing against the other ones because I love them all. But I just feel like, man, Heaven and Hell is, I don't know, I guess you had to be there. You weren't there, but you know what I mean? But there was just something special about being there when it was released. And plus, to me, I was 15, 14. That's the age. And 1980 for me was the greatest year. You had the First Maiden, British Steel, Saxon, Wheels of Steel, and Strong Arm of the Law, Back in Black. You had so many epic albums in just 1 year. And, it was just a perfect album at the perfect time. And it did really well. It really did well because, they played a smaller place here, the Miami High Live, but when they came back from Mob Rules, which is a great, amazing album. But I think when they played the Hollywood Sportatorium, a big arena, it was really from the strength of Heaven and Hell because it had time for people to sink into people that, believe me, and it got the best reactions, those, and Iron Man, of course, but, those songs from, and when Dio, I'll never forget, when Dio would announce Children of the Sea, the place would erupt.
Right.
Because it sunk into people. But when I saw Heaven and Hell tour, it was fairly new. I mean, Vinny Appice was already there, but it didn't get the same reaction that it got a year later because finally it sunk into people how amazing this album is.
Yeah.
And I'm a 70s Sabbath guy, but, as far as like, what happened afterwards, Heaven and Hell has to be the best album of the post-Ozzy era. And my favorite would be Die Young. There's just something great about that song, Die Young. And I love it, but my least favorite sticks out like a sore thumb. And it's a great song, but it doesn't really feel like the rest of the album is Walk Away. And it's a great song. And the dark horse on this album, I feel, is your favorite, and Wishing Well. I don't think it's enough praise. Wishing Well is just what a song. Never played live. It's just a great song.
For me, if I had to pick two, it'd be Lonely Is the Word and Wishing Well. I just feel those are just two magical songs. There's just something, they have that Dio quality, to that he brought to the band. But also the reason I love Lonely Is the Word so much is that long solo. All the soloing that Tony does in that song is just fantastic. And what's sad is when they would trot out that song, I think on the when they played Radio City Music Hall, when Dio got back with them in 2007, they did DVD. And I think they played Lonely Is the Word, but what they did is they didn't play that whole solo section. They ended it, and Tony didn't get to do that whole thing. And I think that's one of the best parts of the song is all the lead work he does in that song. So that's too bad. I would have loved to have seen that song played from start to finish, the whole thing with all the leads and everything. But really, for me, there's not a weak song on the album, so it's hard to pick a least favorite. But I guess I would have to say the same thing. I guess I'd have to go with Walk Away too, even though I think it's a good tune. I think it's real, but I guess if I had to pick one.
Yeah, because you're stacking it against all these other songs, man. It's like, how can you say, oh, well, I like it more. I like Walk Away more than Lonely Is the Word. Lonely Is the Word would be like, probably my second favorite on there. I think it's criminally underrated. That opening riff, too. And the lyrics, I've been higher than Stardust. It's just so Dio because the thing I loved about Dio, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, it reminds me of stuff like something he'd sing in Rainbow. It has that kind of quality to it. A line like what you said, it reminds me of something he would have sang with Ritchie Blackmore. And he brought that to Black Sabbath. So,
I just feel, the thing I loved about Ronnie James Dio's lyrics.
Yeah.
Not necessarily that they made sense, but they painted a picture, It wasn't like a story, but you would hear it, and I just loved how he would, like, sometimes say things that would contrast, and but it just painted a picture. And I think the song that paints the best picture lyrically on Heaven and Hell is Lonely Is the Word. Just the way, he phrases it and sings it, and then how and then, like, your favorite part. It's just this really beast monster song that Dio kind of segues into that kind of slowing down with his majestic voice with, it has to be, I never heard, that part. It just, it blends perfectly. It's just a perfect blend. And great masterpiece of an album. And the next one I feel is a masterpiece as well. Mob Rules. It's heavy as hell. Yeah. And maybe a little more evil, than. I'm
going to say the same thing. Really, it's just as good as Heaven and Hell, is the funny thing. It's just because Heaven and Hell came before it, it makes you more inclined to pick it if you had to pick one as an example. But really, it's basically a sister album to Heaven and Hell. They go so perfectly together. But it's like you said, the evil dial got turned up to 11 on Mob Rules. It's like Dio, and I think it probably was a lot him, but maybe also hearing the riffs that Tony was coming up with. When you hear like that, the Sign of the Southern Cross, when you hear that music, I mean, of course, that's going to cause Dio to conjure up some really, dark and sinister sounding words, just hearing that riff. So I think that, for some reason, they just went in a really dark direction on Mob Rules.
Bring me your children, they'll burn.
Yeah.
Come on. How much more evil can you get?
And the album cover, everything about it, it seemed perfectly tailored, I guess, to that time, because you're into the 80s now, and when heavy metal is like a scapegoat for everything, and people were pointing to albums and saying these albums are evil and you got to burn them and stuff like that. So an album like Mob Rules really fits in with the time period, I think.
And the whole Kill Ozzy thing about that album cover?
And I always wonder, I mean, and I've seen it. I've seen, where they've taken tracing and traced it out, and you can see that. But is that intentional? I don't know.
I know, right?
What'd you say?
I agree. It's very coincidental, though, I got to say,
Yeah, it's coincidental, but I can't tell if it's intentional, and no one will cop to it or admit to it and say, yeah, that was put there on purpose. So I don't know.
I don't think they've ever been asked. I've never seen an interview where they ever asked any of the members about that Kill Ozzy thing. And that I discovered much, much later.
Right, right. But it's a scary album cover. It's very weird. Very weird.
Oh, yeah. And my favorite off this is Falling Off the Edge of the World.
Great one.
That is my favorite. My least favorite, man, I hate to say this. Because, of course, we're not going to go with instrumentals, because E5150 is, I would pick that. But if I had to pick an actual song, kind of like Walk Away, but not as drastic much of a change. And I just played it this past week on my radio show, because I think it is a very dark horse of a song, but I just happen to like all the other songs more than Slipping Away. Though I love Slipping Away. I do love that song. I think Country Girl is awesome. Country Girl should have been a single, because it's very hooky.
It is.
It sounds like it could have been a hit.
Yeah. It's kind of funny how that works out. And the funny thing also is Tony and Geezer, they didn't like the lyrics. Tony came up with this really great riff, and I guess the lyrics that Dio came back with, they weren't expecting. I remember reading that in that Martin Papa book, that they didn't really care for lyrics, but I think they fit. It's not like this really lovey-dovey, cheesy. I don't think the lyrics are cheesy at all, so I don't understand that. But I think that would be my favorite off the album if I had to pick one. And then if I picked another, it'd probably be Voodoo.
Oh yeah, I love that one. The thing I love about Country Girl too is I love every single thing about it, but I love when it goes into that, in dreams I think of you. I don't know what to do with myself. Just that, how it kind of goes into this little dreamy section. and then back to pummeling you. You know, it's an amazing track. So, do you have a least favorite?
Least favorite, I guess, would be Slipping Away.
Okay.
That probably. I love the bass playing in that from Geezer. I mean, he's got this really fat tone and it's real loud in the mix. I like that, but as a song, you know, it's not one I'm going to revisit over and over. Even though when I put on an album like Mob Rules, I put it on and listen to it start to finish. So I never skip anything.
The solo on Over and Over is Iommi is most crazy, I think.
Right. Amazing. He was trying to one up Lonely Is the Word. It's like he wanted to try to one up that song. And I think it's a good tune. I love that song. Yeah.
Oh, it's a great song. And you know, yeah, like you said, it is a sister album. You have Turn Up the Night, awesome song, kind of reminiscent of Neon Nights.
Right.
And then you end it with Over and Over, which is kind of reminiscent of Lonely Is the Word.
Yeah. And then halfway through the album, you have a song like The Sign of the Southern Cross, which is kind of similar to Heaven and Hell. It's got this epic feel to it.
Right.
So it's like they tried to craft the album. Metallica did that a lot, too. If you look at their discography and look at albums like Ride the Lightning and then Master Puppets, and they kind of place, you know, fast songs in a certain place and then a slower song.
Yeah, you have For Whom the Bell Tolls, and you have Things That Should Not Be, followed by Fade to Black to Sanitarium, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they place songs in similar spots, and that's what Sabbath did on Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules. They were trying to replicate it, but heavier, darker, and I think they did a great job because I can listen to it over and over. And Turn Up the Night should have been played live just as much as Neon Nights. It really should have. I don't know why Dio didn't care much for that song.
I remember reading an interview say he didn't like it.
Yeah,
it's an awesome song.
It really is. It's a very cool song. I never get tired of that one.
There's a band called Night Demon. I don't know if you ever heard of them. They're kind of new. They do a great cover of Turn Up the Night.
Right.
Yeah, you should check it out. It's awesome. All right, now Dio leaves. Controversy with that everybody denies about Live Evil. I didn't turn up the volume, and I didn't either. And the producer was on Jack Daniels. He lied, so who knows what happened. But we go into, Born Again, which is, a very polarizing album. I mean, that one, it's like you either love it or hate it. And I love that album. To me, it's like, even more, evil than Mob Rules. I mean, they really went out of their way.
Yeah.
To do, look at the album cover, look at the Disturbing the Priest album titles.
Right.
Wow. I mean, I saw the tour, and my God, that's an album I never get tired of. And you want to talk about a drastic departure from Heaven and Hell to the 70s Sabbath? Born Again from the Ozzy era. Dio era and Ozzy era.
Yeah.
It's just night and day.
It's its own special thing. It's amazing. And it's so, like how we said, Mob Rules is so dark. Born Again takes it to ridiculous levels.
Yeah.
And the way Ian Gillan, he's like cackling and he sounds like he's unhinged on Disturbing the Priest. And it's just an off the rails album from start to finish. It's really one of a kind. It's got some great riffs. You got Zero the Hero on here, but Hotline. Probably what's that?
Hotline.
Yeah, that's a good. Digital Bitch is a really good one. I love the main riff to that one. And but if I had to pick a couple favorites, I'd say the title cut, Born Again, and Disturbing the Priest. Those would be my two favorites. And isn't it kind of funny how they start the album once again, even though they're not trying for a similar feel as the Dio era, Trashed. It gets the album started off on a nice, fast, energetic note, just like Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules did. This album does the same thing. Yeah. So that's really cool.
Amazing song too. Not performed live, Trashed, which was weird because it was a single. And the video back then. Yeah. And I remember leaving that show going, man, they didn't play Trash. And then later on, I found out they didn't play it ever. I just thought they didn't play it that night. Wow. I love that one too. And I love, to me, the sickest screams ever caught on tape is the end of Disturbing the Priest. Just when he just goes crazy, and then the last scream when he goes, "Ah!" It's like, damn, man, it's just. And the story behind that was the preacher was complaining because he was trying to. They were near a church, and he was trying to have his chorus sing, and they're blasting metal. Yeah. And then Ian Gillan later went and had a drink with the preacher. Great story. There's a lot. I mean, you got to get Doom Let Loose. There's a lot of craziness that went on in the recording of that album. I would say Disturbing the Priest is my favorite and my least favorite, and I love it. I used to not like it that much, but I've grown to love it. Is Keep It Warm. I've grown to really love that song. I love the song that wasn't on there, The Fallen. You've heard that?
I've heard it, but it's one because it's not on the album, so I've only listened to it a few times, so I don't have it like pained in my head.
And also, I wouldn't say, it's a track off Born Again, because it's not, something left off. I'm just saying this song that they recorded for the that didn't make the album, pretty damn good and very different from a lot of, from All Blacks, even a lot different than the stuff on Born Again. It's just a really sporadic riffage going on. It's
right. Awesome. It's not a doomy song, The Fallen, if I remember correctly, is it? It's more of a hard,
very, very, very fast.
Right.
It's fast paced.
Yeah.
And Iommi does a riffage that he's never done before. It's like a busy, very busy riff going down. Like it's just out there. And Bill Ward is back in the band. So on The Fallen is where you really hear 70s Bill Ward, because he plays very sporadic on that song, but he does some sporadic shit on the actual album too. There's some crazy, what's the word I'm looking for? Structures to his drumming. It's just a dark, and not really liked by a lot of people. But then there's people that swear by it.
Right. There's people that can't get into it because of the production, just the way it sounds. And I think that keeps people away from really becoming immersed in it. Because the first time I listened to it on cassette tape. I got the tape at a used tape place. And when I was listening to it in my Walkman, I thought there was something wrong with the tape. I really did. Because the sound, it just sounded kind of garbled and chaotic and just really fucked up sounding. And so I thought there was something wrong with my tape. Eventually I realized, no, that's just the way this album sounds. and then once I got used to listening to it, I was like, now I can't hear it any other way. I really wouldn't want them to go back and try to change the way it sounds, because that's born again. That's the way it's.
I agree with you 100% because of the sound of that album and the dark songs.
Yeah, it adds.
Yeah, it's kind of like a marriage. It's really good. Then we go into what was supposed to be a Tony Iommi solo album, but there's some controversy saying that that's a lie. It was always intended to be a Black Sabbath album. I know Tony's gone on record saying, no, this was supposed to be a solo album. Was a 7-star. And again, it's different. That's the one thing about, Tony Iommi. Now Tony's on his own. There's not even Geezer's there. Nobody's there. And maybe, who knows, maybe this was supposed to be a solo album so people would think, oh, what the hell? He's doing Black Sabbath without anybody now? But I think it's a very underrated album. What do you think of 7-star?
I think it's a really nice, polished album. I mean, it's different than all the other Sabbath stuff. You got Glenn Hughes on the vocals, and his performance, it stands alone. I love how it starts out with In for the Kill, because once again, we're kind of keeping with the pace of the past 3 albums, where you start off with this really energetic, fast-paced rockin' song. And it just, I don't know, almost has a Maiden feel to it. Because just the way it gets the album off to this galloping start. And then you got No Stranger to Love, which I like. I mean, some people may think that's a cheesy song or something, or they're trying to purposely have a hit, but it's a good crafted song. I like the production on this album's really good. If I had to pick a couple favorites, they'd be Danger Zone and Angry Heart. And I count that that ending of Angry Heart where it's called In Memory. I kind of feel like that's part of the same song. It kind of goes into it. So those would be my favorites. Funny enough, my least favorite thing on Seventh Star would probably be the title song. I just kind of feel like it kind of meanders about. I just don't really like it. But Danger Zone, it's got a great riff. Great riff that song has.
Danger Zone's my favorite. That's my favorite off. It's the first one I ever heard. It was on a syndicated radio show back then called Metal Shop. And when I heard that, I ran out and bought the album. I was like, because, I mean, honestly, No Stranger Love, I saw that video. And I was like, whoa, this, you know, it just didn't do anything for me. Right. But when I heard Danger Zone, I ran out and bought the album. I really liked Heart Like a Wheel on this album. And For the Kill, I love. And I did like Seven Star. Seven Star to me sounds more Black Sabbath than any song on this album, I think, because of the riffage, you know. You know, typical. But yeah, I would still stand by, you know, No Stranger to Love. It has grown on me a little bit, but it just doesn't grab me as much. So that would be my least favorite on the album. But I think it's a great album. I didn't get to see the tour. It didn't do too well, and I had tickets to see it, and they canceled the show due to lack of ticket sales.
Right. Yeah.
But it's a great album. Look, they never done a Tony Iommi till, you know, I know the album that you and I agree with. He's never done anything wrong.
Right. Yeah. But I just, all those albums are strong. All the way. Sabbath didn't start to go wrong until the very end, I feel like.
I agree with you 100%. And the way you described it, well, we'll get into that album. I was like, if you look at my review, we mirror exactly what we think of those albums. The next one I would say is the most underrated of them all, is The Eternal Idols. Now, this is one that I bought just because I saw it in the store. You want to talk about bad promotion. The Shining was never showed on MTV. I didn't even know this album exists till I saw it in a record store. And I was like, what is this? Black Sabbath. And I thought at first it was a compilation. Right. But then I looked at the back and I was like, man. And I took it home and my God, this album. Now we're going into the Tony Martin years. Mm-hmm. Not technically Tony Martin because he wasn't really involved in it because he got more involved later on. But a lot of people, and nothing against Ray Gillen, because I think Ray Gillen's amazing. I love him. And I love the demos. I love what Ray Gillen did to it. But I don't know, man. A lot of people are like, oh, the Ray Gillen demos are better. And I'm like, I disagree because what Tony Martin does is no different than what Ray Gillen did on this album. He pretty much mimicked Ray Gillen. Yeah. You know? Yeah. And I think it's a very strong album. This one's going to be very hard for me to pick a least favorite. But I think I was just completely floored how good this album was and how nobody knew about it back then. Wasn't promoted at all. Maybe in Europe or so. But here, nobody cared. Right. And Ancient Warriors just... But anyway, I'll just say it right now. My favorite on this album, you know, I didn't really think about this one, but I would probably have to go with Glory Ride. There's something about that song. That and the title track would be my two favorites. I'd hate to say it, but yeah, guess probably Hard Lot. Born to Lose would be probably but I love it. And it's the first Black Sabbath album since, I believe, Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath that features an acoustic piece. Scarlet Pimpernel.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I love that, by the way. That's a great acoustic piece on here. It's got a really haunting sound to it. I just love it. I love the music.
Beautiful. Yeah. What do you think overall of The Eternal Idols?
Well, for me, I think it's a really good album. It's very, very strong from start to finish. The production's great on it. If I had to pick a couple favorites, I agree with you about Glory Ride. That's just such an amazing song. That is just a classic heavy metal song. Just the music, the lyrics, everything. And I love that part in the middle of the song where Tony Martin says, hear them calling, that whole section. And then his
with
voice.
the kind of upbeat riff going on.
Yeah, so that one for me, that's always been my favorite on this album. And another one that I really like would probably, the ending song is like the doomiest. It's just as doomy as like the title Black Sabbath song. It's one of their doomiest songs, that main riff to the closing song on this album. But
I said on my review, I said Eternal Idols is Black Sabbath. It's the 80s version of Black Sabbath, that song. The song Black Sabbath, I feel like that's the 80s version of it.
Right. Yeah. Just it's a very dark, mournful riff. It just has that quality to it. And it's scary. It's lumbering. It's in your face. It's very different than the rest of the album. The rest of the album isn't really like that. It's more like a very classy, traditional 80s heavy metal album. And then you get to that last song and it's really doomy and downtrodden. But you talked about Born to Lose. That would be actually, I put that up there as another one of my favorites, and mainly because of the solo section that Tony goes into in that song. He plays a great solo at the halfway point of this song that I really enjoy. But Eternal Idol overall, though, this isn't my favorite of the Tony Martin years. It's the next album, once we get to that I feel like is the best.
Well, I will tell you, this has always been my favorite Tony Martin album, but I'm saying as recent as this year, I think there's another one I like even more than Eternal Idol. It's finally done, and it's not the next one. But before we go into Headless Cross, which is really the official kickoff to real Tony Martin era, because there he had input. Your video praising this lineup is like, you hit the nail. I did a video as well, and my reviews. I've done reviews of all these albums, talking about how the hell are these albums, not as respected as they should be.
It doesn't make sense. Yeah, it doesn't make sense that people will hold up albums like, Peace of Mind and Power Slave and Defenders of the Faith and all these other great 80s albums, but you don't hear people talk about something like Eternal Idol or Headless Cross. I mean, Headless Cross is a fucking masterpiece, just like Heaven and Hell is, or like Sabotage is for the Ozzy years. I feel like for the Tony Martin era, Headless Cross, it's just stellar from start to finish. Every damn song on the album. It's amazing.
Like anybody that wants to question Tony Martin's voice, listen to Nightwing and tell me the guy is not phenomenal.
Right. Yeah.
I bought this when it came out, brand new. I loved it. I still love it. I have nothing bad to say about this album. But I did see your review, and here's where we finally disagree on one thing about this album. I'll tell you, my favorite song on here is Black Moon. Always has been since I first heard this album. But my least favorite you praised. And it's cool, man. It's cool that we have different, but I never liked Call of the Wind, man. I don't know why, but
Call of the Wild.
Oh, okay. Wild, yeah. I don't know why. And also when I did the review, people are like, you're crazy. Everybody loves that song. I know I'm the odd man out, but there's just something, I don't know. I mean, yeah. Oh, another one I got to say is Devil and Daughters up there, too. It's one of my favorites on there. Another stellar performance from the way Tony Martin delivers that song. Jesus. The guy's a beast. He's a beast. Though it is my third favorite Tony Martin era. I would put Eternal Idols and another one. We'll get to it. What do you think overall? Oh, obviously, you think it's their best album with Tony Martin, but
right.
Tell me how you feel about this and your favorite and least favorite.
Yeah, with Headless Cross, it's just like we talked about how Mob Rules, took that whole sinister edge and just rammed it in your face. Headless Cross does the same thing after the Eternal Idol. Headless Cross is just full on, it has this evil atmosphere. It has a real dark album cover. But then the great thing is it's not a morose album or anything like that. It's a very classy, heavy metal album with great melodies, beautiful singing, fantastic solos from Tony all through this album. And my favorite song, you already said, you love this song too, Black Moon.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
And Nightwing. The funny thing about Nightwing is that song grew on me. I didn't used to call that one a favorite. I would have called a song like Devil and Daughter or the opening cut. I would have said I like those better, but Nightwing really grew on me. That is an epic heavy metal song. I think in the beginning I just wasn't giving it a chance because it starts off, softly and then it gets heavier as it goes. But once I gave it a chance and let the atmosphere of the song just kind of wrap around me, that's a great tune. It really is. And the other thing about Headless Cross, the reason I love it so much is it showed what Tony Martin could do when he's just free to sing and be himself. He's not like being confined to kind of mimicking a performance. So I feel that's what I feel like his voice has a lot of character to it. I feel like he gave this album a lot more of his character shown through. It's really there for you to feel and to see and to hear. So it's just a great album.
Yeah, it's phenomenal, and it's such a shame it's out of print. All the Tony Martin stuff is out of print.
Yeah, and Kill in the Spirit World, that is a great tune too. I mean, everything it's hard for me to pick a least favorite song on this album. I really don't. I wouldn't even know what to pick. Is the funny thing with this one. Every song is good. It is either good or great. So, yeah, I don't even on this album. I guess right now I would say, and this is a great song, is When Death Calls. Great tune. Great atmosphere, and it's doomy, and then it gets into that fast-paced riff later on. But I guess I'd put it least. If I was ranking the songs, that'd be my least on this album. And I'd put Black Moon and Nightwing at the top.
Is that the one with Brian May?
Yeah. He has a guest solo on this album. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the first time another guitar player played on a Black Sabbath album, other than Kill in the Spirit World. I love the changes in that song because it kind of sounds upbeat, kind of like what is the song I don't like on there and again, kind of like an AOR feel, but then it goes into this weird, Jeff Nichols keyboard thing. It's awesome.
That's what I love about it, is that contrast between like these kind of, it's very melodic, but Tony Martin is singing these, evil, ghostly lyrics. And so the mishmash of it just really, it's ear candy. It really is. Yeah. The sound is just beautiful to your ears when you put it on.
Then we go into my favorite of the Tony Martin era, which I recently, 4 or 5 months ago, I said, you know what, man, I actually like this more than Eternal Eye. It just took me decades to realize it. Tire. Masterpiece. I mean, this is like, to me, like, and again, like we'll sound like a broken record, but, this album, the two before, is so underrated, it's sickening, you know? Yeah. And I just think they turned up a couple notches on this one and just really, gelled and, starting with that Anno Monday. Yeah. And the Great Lawmaker, which is so fast and furious and just pure metal. I mean, how any self-respecting metalhead will listen to Lawmaker and not praise it is mind-blowing to me.
Yeah.
But they, and then they went a little kind of, I don't know, power metal, should I say, like a power metal feel with Jerusalem and, a couple other songs. You have Odin's Court, which is, kind of like, but God, it's such a great album. And it took me a while. I don't know, maybe I was just being trying to be countercultural. Oh, because, everybody says Headless Cross. I'm going to say Eternal Idols. But I still say I like Eternal Idols more. I guess it's because of timeline. Yeah. But this album is phenomenal. And definitely my favorite song off this one is Fire, the Sabbath Stones. Yeah. There's just something so fucking badass about that song, Fire and water, dun, dun. Just that ominous, beginning. It has such a vibe. Yeah. And it's just amazing. My least favorite will be the single, and I still like it. But I just feel like it was a bad choice for a single. Was Feels Good to Me.
Feels good
and,
to me.
They make a video with with a hot chick and a studly guy. Come on.
Yeah.
It's just, but I don't hate the song. I think it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, Feels Good to Me. I like the song a lot, but that video is really cheesy. And that's not the song you should have representing the album. You should have a song like, it's like you're saying, how could anyone who likes heavy metal not just totally be floored by a song like Anno Mundi? It's just an amazing track. It blows your fucking face off. It's an amazing tune. And, it's got that epic chorus. It's got the driving verse sections to it. It's just a very bombastic sound. And then the next song, like you said, The Lawmaker, it's fast, it's furious. But for me, my favorite is like you, the Sabbath Stones. I would say that's my favorite because it starts off real doomy and everything. But then it kind of surprises you the way it kind of weaves into other stuff. And so I really, really love that one. I would say that one and Anno Mundi would probably be my two favorites. I would actually pick as my least favorite on this album would be Heaven in Black, the closing track. I just feel like it's kind of there. It's nothing special. So that would be my least favorite. I feel like everything else on this album just blends wonderfully and it flows from track to track, just like Headless Cross, pretty much.
Valhalla is another great track.
The album cover I thought was creepy when I was a kid because all I ever saw it on was a cassette tape. So it was smaller, so you couldn't. I was like, what the fuck is even on this album cover? I really couldn't figure it out. And it was just really ominous looking. So that made a big impression on me when I was younger.
Then Dio comes back. And, of course, we're talking about the music business. And, they're not really succeeding with Tony Martin. Dio's got a name. But, man, it was just so much drama going into Dehumanizer. You have Dio come back and Cozy Powell is part of the lineup. He's not getting along with Dio. I believe he had a horse accident, Cozy Powell, so he couldn't play on the album. They brought Vinny back. Then Dio left. They brought Tony Martin back. And then they kicked Tony Martin out again. And they get I just felt like, man, that's disrespectful, man.
I would love to hear what Tony Martin, I would love to hear some of the rehearsals, like if they recorded any of those Dehumanizer tracks with Tony Martin on vocals. I'd love to hear what they were doing. Like, that would be really interesting to hear his vocals on that album or on any unfinished bits. That would be interesting to hear.
Oh, I'd love to hear that. All in all, with all the drama and bullshit that went on with this album, I really love Dehumanizer.
Yeah.
I think it's a very solid album. Probably the most underrated of the Dio era. Mm-hmm. And I just think it's really heavy. There's one track I'm not crazy about, which will be easy to pick as my least favorite. But what do you think of Dehumanizer overall?
Well, instead of going in that very melodic direction like they were on the previous albums, this album just clobbers you. It's just so heavy, so dense, and it just has a really rigid, powerful sound to it. And it's just really angry. Dio sounds really angry. He's not singing as much fantasy style stuff on this album. And I think Computer God gets the album off to a great start. That was always one of my favorites. And I would have loved, I saw Sabbath with Dio how many times? I only got to see Dio with them twice, and it was when they were touring as Heaven and Hell. And unfortunately, I didn't get to see him do Computer God live, but I would have loved to have seen that because I love that tune. The chorus to it is amazing. And what's another? Master of Insanity's got a great riff to it. It's got a really great feel. Those would probably be a couple of my favorites. My least favorite on Dehumanizer would be Time Machine. I just don't like that song. I don't know. It just doesn't do anything for me at all. So, but other than that, I think it's a really strong album. Even a song like Sins of the Father, it's kind of a song you wouldn't immediately leap to, but even it's cool. It's got some cool riffing in it. So
it's great album. Like it's Sin of the Father, kind of like, it doesn't sound like it, but it has the same structure of Killing the Spirit World, because the way Sin of the Father starts with that kind of happy kind of riff, then it goes into that darkness to it. It's a great song. Letters of Earth is really unique. My favorite, and I'm really not trying to be countercultural here, but it is my favorite Dio song with Black Sabbath is I. It's just a fucking amazing song. And my least favorite, Time Machine, hands down.
Yeah.
I never liked it. And that was the first track I heard from this because of Wayne's World.
Right.
And I knew, reading magazines that Dio was back. And when I heard that, I was the first thing I thought, I go, I hope that's not on the album. I hope that just stays on the soundtrack,
Yeah.
But no, but I did see the tour, and yes, I did see him do Computer God, which was great. But unfortunately, I saw him do Time Machine as well. So,
all right.
But it's a great album. I recently got the vinyl that brings. I always loved the Letters from Earth expanded one. I don't know if you ever heard that. It's a version that has more to it. It's really unique. It's really awesome to hear. But yeah, Too Late is awesome. Buried Alive. I mean, it's just a really. Oh, After All the Dead.
Oh yeah.
And it was really wild.
A really doomy to end the album with with Buried Alive, instead of going out in this really elegant way like they did on the 2 Dio albums before. They go out with this really pummeling, just it doesn't have like this optimistic kind of, it doesn't have a mystical feel to it or anything. It's just very pummeling and just very dark. So it's just a very angry album overall. And I think
Buried Alive,
it was
Buried Alive. Go ahead.
It was a reflection of the times, I think, too, because they told Dio that they didn't want him writing songs about rainbows and magic and stuff like that. So I think that's a big part of why all the grunge and everything was going on at the time. They didn't think anything like that would sell, I guess. Turns out it didn't matter anyway. I mean, they should have, he can write whatever he wants, but it's a great album. No matter what he was writing about, it's a great album.
And I thought he did great, with the angry lyrics, I is a very angry song, and Computer God is like kind of like foretelling the future of computers taking over the world, and TV Crime's another great one, which is slam on religion. There's just a lot of stuff. Buried Alive reminds me riffage a lot of Zero the Hero, has that kind of same type of riff, but it's awesome. I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
All right, so that didn't work out because Dio didn't want to open for Ozzy. So they bring Tony Martin back with Cross Purposes, and this was the only time I got to see Tony Martin. I saw this tour. This is an album, I got to admit, was a grower. I never disliked it. I mean, I listened to it a lot before the show to get into, songs that they would play live. And I always loved Eyewitness. That was like such a cool damn tune.
Oh, yeah.
And it does have a lot of good songs. And there's, a couple that, like, what is it, Psychophobia? That one I just never can get into.
It's weird. It's jarring, the riff pattern on it.
And was it Virtual Death that sounded like Alice in Chains? I know one song. This is something I should revisit more, this album. Looking at these track titles, I kind of can't remember. But I do know what my favorite song is on here. But what do you think of this album, Cross Purposes? Did you ever do a review on this?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, I got to see that.
I really love Cross Purposes, but it does have some weaker songs that are very skippable. But the ones that are strong are so strong that it just kind of props the album up in my mind. Like it starts off with that 1-2 punch. You got Eyewitness. And then, what is it? Crown of Thorns?
Cross of Thorns.
Right. I haven't listened to that one in a while, but that's a really good song. I love the emotion in that one. You got some nice acoustic guitar and everything in that. Eyewitness and The Hand That Rocks the Cradle. Those would be my 2 favorites on this album. And really like a least favorite, I think there's a song on here called Dying for Love or something like that. It's just a very forgettable song. It's very maudlin. It sounds like I don't know. It just doesn't even. It's one of the worst of the Tony Martin era. That song, I don't like that one at all. But everything else, I feel like this is a really good album overall. But The Hand That Rocks the Cradle is a great tune. I think there's some great on that one. Great
riffage once that beginning mellow, and then that when the band comes in, awesome. Yeah, Eyewitness would be my favorite on here, and I really liked Evil Eye a lot.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
song that ends, which rumored to have Eddie Van Halen on it. I don't know if you
right,
read. I think that's
yeah,
in Doom Let Loose.
yeah.
That he took no credit because of record companies getting involved. But my least favorite, I would have to say that Psychophobia. I just can't get into that song. But I do listen to this one more than the next one, and this one is like universally hated. But I don't know if you did a review on this, but I really don't think it deserves all the hate. I think, okay, it's not a great album, but it's not as bad as people make it out to be.
Right.
And a lot of people think, oh, this album sucks because Tony Iommi owed IRS one more album, so he just shit one out. But
Mm.
I think there's some really good songs on this one. Yeah, there's some clunkers too that I don't care for, but Forbidden is not a bad album,
Right.
especially with what was to come. I think songs like "Guilty as Hell" and "Rusty Angels"
Mm.
really a good song on here, and "Kiss of Death" is awesome. "Get
Mm.
a Grip," the single, I thought was great, but boy, you talk about a badly promoted. I didn't even know "Get a Grip" had a video till
Right.
recently. You know.
Yeah.
But what do you think of Forbidden? I don't think I've seen you talk about this one either.
Uh, Forbidden. I really like this album. There's some great. It has some gold on it. Kiss of Death for me is one of my all-time favorite Black Sabbath songs. Like if I was making a top 10 list, it would probably be in my top 5. It's
Nice.
just it's a very powerful song. It has all these different emotions in it. It has the soft sections in it. It has the pummeling riffs, great lyrics. So that one I love, Kiss of Death. And I Won't Cry for You is a really good tune. It reminds me of something. It seems like it could have been on Technical Ecstasy. It kind of has that feel to it when it gets to the solo section.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like that one a lot. Um, as far as something I wouldn't like on this album, I would say Get a Grip and Can't Get Close Enough. That's just a really weird song. That one I
Right.
can't do much at all. But overall, I've always really liked Forbidden. I like how it has more of a garage sound to it, type feel to it, kind of like Never Say Die and Born Again. It doesn't have the best production, but it has some really strong material on it despite that.
I agree. I agree pretty much. And at the time when it was new, I was like, okay, this is the worst thing they've ever done. I couldn't get into it. But it's Black Sabbath. I give stuff chances over and over again, and it's grown on me. Like Kiss of Death, man. I really do love that song. I love that a lot.
Amazing.
So that was it. That's it for the Tony Martin era. And Dio comes back, but they don't call it Black Sabbath. But we all know it's Black Sabbath.
Right.
The
Yeah.
devil, you know. What
Yeah.
do you think of this one?
This album for me, I was it's not a bad album by any means, but it's disappointing to me at the time when it came out because I felt like they just kind of played it safe. It's another very lumbering album. I just feel like it's lacking some energy. On those older albums, you had stuff like Turn Up the Night and Neon Nights, and even on Dehumanizer, that it seems like they were trying to go the Dehumanizer route, and I feel like that was just playing it a little bit too safe. But it does have good, Adam and Evil. That's a good song. I like that song a lot. That would probably be my favorite. And then I think it's called Rock and Roll Angel.
Yeah.
It has a really nice, classy solo section from Iommi that just sounds really beautiful. I really like that part of that song. Uh, as far as least favorite on it, it's hard to really pick one because I don't have strong feelings towards this album one way or another. Because, like I said, I was very disappointed in it to begin with. Eating the Cannibals, it's kind of a pointless song. Breaking into Heaven kind of sounds like retreading the opening song, Adam and Evil. It just has a very similar feel. It's almost like they're doing the same song again. So those would be my least favorites, but yeah.
I gotta say, when it comes to the last two Sabbath albums, I don't really visit these too much.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, for me, Bible Black is to me, my favorite on here. It does remind me of your Children of the Sea or Sign of the Southern Cross with the mellow intro, and I think it's an awesome song. And another song that really grew on me on this song is this album was Follow the Tears. I really, really like that song. Overlooking I don't remember Double the Pain or Rock and Roll Angel, Turn the Screw. So I guess I'm gonna have to cop out on this one and say I don't know what my least favorite one is on this one, But yeah, it was I agree. It was a disappointing album. I don't think it's bad at all. It's heavy and it's doomy.
Yeah, and it's very heavy and it has great solos from Iommi. Really, right. The star of the show. The one thing that I can point out about this album and 13 is at least they have good solos from Iommi. That's the one shining thing about both those albums. Because other than that, they're pretty, just kind of disappointing because they're not doing anything adventurous. I feel like, after Forbidden, Black Sabbath stopped being like this viable band that wanted to continue to do new things. It's almost like when they got back with Dio for the Devil You Know, it's just the play it safe route, basically. So it's a decent album, but it's not memorable. You can't hold it up with like lofty status or anything.
Yeah, what I would give Devil You Know over 13 is that at least Devil You Know they weren't. See, the thing I love about Black Sabbath is that they never repeat themselves.
Right.
13 they did a lot.
Totally, and that was their intention. Yeah, and that was their intention. I mean, when you get to that, yeah, definitely.
The first two songs on this album is them trying to recreate the song Black Sabbath.
I know.
Like one after the other. It's like you open this album with two songs that are trying to be Black Sabbath.
Right. Yeah. And for me on 13, Ozzy just sounds too robotic. It doesn't sound anymore like a guy that's there, flesh and blood, like singing his heart out. It sounds too computerized. It sounds too soul and by the numbers and like it's patched together. And I don't like that because that doesn't give me the same feel that the other albums with Ozzy did. They were raw and loose and in your face. And then you get to 13 and it's just too robotic sounding.
It's really, I'm telling you, when I first got this album, I was horrified. I was so happy. Oh, Black Sabbath got a, I was very upset. Don't get me wrong with the whole Bill Ward thing. The Bill Ward situation really did bother me a lot because I love Bill Ward. He's one of my favorite drummers of all time. And I feel like he should have been there. They hired this guy that just played by numbers. The drumming on this album is very pedestrian, I think.
Yeah.
There's nothing. And then you have a song like Loner that's them trying to do NIB again. What is Zeitgeist?
It's like playing Caravan.
Yeah, it's like
Caravan again on that one. Yeah.
It really did. I mean, I don't like anything off this album, man. If I can tell you the only thing I like about this album is the solo on Damaged Soul. I like that. But that's not a song. It's not the rest of the song. Though, if I had to pick, all right, what's your favorite song? I'd have to go with, and it's not that great, but I like it more than all the songs on here, is a bonus track, Methodemic.
Right.
That would be like, yeah.
Yeah. It's an energetic song. It's fast-paced, kind of, yeah. I could see you liking that one, yeah.
So do you have like a favorite or least favorite on this?
If I had to pick a favorite, I would say Loner's an okay song. It's okay, And Age of Reason, I think, has some good soloing in it. It kind of reminds you of something like that would be on Volume 4. So, but other than that, I can't even pick a least favorite on this because I really don't like anything else, really. So it's just a very, very disappointing. And it was pretty much what I expected. I didn't really expect this album to be good from the start, just based on the things I was hearing. That Rick Rubin was being brought in to produce, and he's always wanted to take if he ever did work with Sabbath, he wanted to take them in the direction where they just revisit the first, album or first 3 albums. There was something like he wanted to sit the band down and just make them listen to the first album and then basically just go with that feel. Well, that's going back to the past and just copying yourself. What is the point in that? Unless you're bringing something new to the table, and they just didn't do that. And the sound on this, you can't turn this album up loud without it hurting your ears too. It's a very grating production on this. It's overly, I think people say, like with the Metallica album Death Magnetic, they say that it's very overly compressed, and that's what gives it that sound. It's just very unpleasant to your ears. So that hurts it too, even though Iommi's, it's Iommi playing these riffs. So that at least is going to bring you some joy, even if he's retreading old ground. But the problem is it sounds ugly. You can't crank this album up and enjoy it properly. So, yeah. And
it's like, Rick Rubin wanted Ozzy to make an album like this way back on No More Tears.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so he finally got his wish. But, man, Rick Rubin has done some great albums, but I can't think of anything he's done since really the Trouble album in 1990. And all he does is lay around. I don't know if you saw the making of this album. He just lays down, and he doesn't really get involved much. I mean, he just puts his name on it. And, hey, guys, do something like the old stuff. I want to hear 70 Sabbath. Do another NIB. Do another Planet Caravan. Do another Black Sabbath. And that's how I feel. It's just and it really upset me a lot because it was like, this is not Black Sabbath. Black Sabbath doesn't repeat themselves.
Right. Yeah.
And this whole album just sounds like really like not a greatest hits, but, just hey, look how we used to do songs. Look, here's a modern version with Ozzy's robotic voice,
Yeah.
And I don't know if you ever got around to listen to that new Ozzy album, Ordinary Man.
I heard some of it. I put the videos on YouTube when it came out. I just don't really like. The last good Ozzy solo album for me was Osmosis. That's the last one that I enjoy. Anything after that, I just don't get into. I can't get into it.
Believe me, Ordinary Man has to be the worst.
Really?
I did hear it all the way through. Trust me, you don't want to. You're not missing anything. And it has that even more robotic voice than 13, believe it or not. And it's sad to know that Ozzy and Sabbath are going to end their career with these albums.
Yeah. Yeah, it's too bad.
But what can you do?
Yeah.
So there you go, Eric. We did it, dude. We went through the whole discography, and I thought it was. I mean, did you have fun?
I sure did. I love talking about Sabbath. Yep.
Hell yeah, man. And maybe, I would like to have you back on because my second favorite band is Merciful Fate. And I've seen you review them a couple times.
Yeah, they're up there with Black Sabbath for me. It's one of my favorite all-time bands. They're in my top 3 for sure.
Oh, so. Right on, man. Right on. So Merciful Fate, a lot to talk about. You know that I recently got an interview with Kim Ruz, and that guy hasn't been interviewed since the 80s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's really...
Yeah, check it out. It's on my podcast. We got Kim Ruz, and we hunted him down, man. It was amazing. And you hear some things you didn't know. He was supposed to be in the King Diamond solo band, and he refused.
Okay.
But we'll get into all that in the future. But, dude, thank you so much for your time. Let the people know, man. Before you do, I got to say, man, MountinTop9, I just watch you constantly, man. And I really like this guy's your way of reviewing. It's very original. It's from the heart. And I love your way of words, how you describe stuff. And I love when you throw in little clips of, cheese and monsters and stuff. It's just, it's unique and it's awesome. And I feel you deserve, more attention. And that's why, I wanted to get you on my channel because I have a lot of subscribers and views. And I just wanted to showcase you, but let the people know, how you got into it and what your channel's about.
Yeah, on my channel, what I love to do is I love to review classic 80s horror movies, horror flicks, all that classic type stuff. So if you love horror movies And if you love classic metal and hard rock, I review lots of albums. So yeah, the channel's MountinTop9, and yeah, stop by and check some of my stuff out. I think my videos are pretty unique. I try to do different stuff that I don't see in other videos. So
it's completely unique. There's no reviewer out there like you. And I like how, like what I was saying, you add things to it. It's not, you don't expect, like, you're talking about something, all of a sudden something pops up on the screen and you're like, wow, what the hell? This is awesome, And yeah, I like your style, man. I like your style of, it's unique. It's very original.
I really appreciate that. I really appreciate you having me on, and that's really cool that you enjoy the videos, because I have fun making them. That's the first thing I do when I'm editing. I'm trying to entertain myself too. As I'm watching myself talk, sometimes I like to splice other things in just to make people's heads spin. So I'm glad you like it.
Right on, man. And before I leave, just one more thing I want to say, because I haven't really, I'm not like the biggest horror guy. I love horror movies, don't get me wrong. But have you talked about, do you know about a movie called, because I saw this as a kid and it freaked me out, Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, you're aware of that one. That's kind of obscure.
Yeah, I need to review it at some point. But yeah, I've always loved that movie. It's actually directed by the same guy who made the movie Black Christmas. If you ever saw that, it's a classic 70s slasher movie.
Was Black Christmas, the movie poster was a ball with a dead body on it on a Christmas tree? Was that Black Christmas? Or am I thinking of another one?
Might have had a poster art that had that, because the cover is this girl sitting in a rocking chair and she's like wrapped in plastic, and she's sitting by a window. But they might have done a variation of that with a Christmas tree ornament. But it's a classic 70s movie. But he also made a movie called Deranged that's about this dude that's a cannibal. It's based on the Ed Gein, if you've ever heard of him.
Yeah, Slayer did serial killer.
Mask.
Yes, that's Skin Mask, yeah.
Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things. That's a classic. So, yeah, I love that one.
Yeah, because I always thought, like, wow, man, nobody ever talks about that one, I always thought, cause I saw it in the theater as a kid, and then I never heard anybody talk about it again. But yeah. Right on, Eric. It's been a great fucking time. I knew I wanted to have you on my podcast and on my channel, because I watched all your Sabbath stuff and your Merciful Fate stuff, and you talked about Slayer too and Metallica, and I watched all that stuff and some of the horror movie stuff I like. Probably my favorite, and it's not even, I haven't seen them all, but I would say my favorite's not even music related, was, and you're not even in it, is when you talked about Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
That was probably I want you people to check that one out. When he talks about that, because you're not even in the video.
Right. But it's so, yeah.
But it's very, very entertaining. So give MountinTop9 a view and subscribe to it, man. You won't be sorry. So thank you again, Eric, for your time. And I sure will want you back on my show when the time comes. We're now Facebook friends, and I'll shoot you a message when I want it to happen.
Okay, that sounds great. Would love to talk about Merciful Fate. That
awesome. Yeah, that would be the next one. We go into some Merciful Fate. Okay. All right. Thank you, brother.
Thanks.
Special thanks again to Eric Anderson from MountinTop9. Again, I highly suggest you check out his channel. All right. You know what time it is. Follow me. All right, we're back in the vault, and this time I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to give you guys a double shot of Black Sabbath. A double shot, period. I've never done a double shot in the vault, not that I remember. And both of these songs didn't actually appear on the albums. The first one I'm going to play is something I discussed during the show, was The Fallen, the unreleased track that ended up on the deluxe edition of Born Again. And the next one I'm going to play is both Eric and I believe Eric said it was his favorite song off Headless Cross, Black Moon, which was actually originally recorded for the Headless Cross album, and it was one of the bonus tracks. So I'm going to play that version as well. back to back. So here we go. This is from the Born Again album. This is The Fallen.
It's been blinded, lost and confused. Darkness will come here no more. Oh, heaven is no friend of mine. No God ever knocked on my door. I see a black moon rising, and it's calling out my name. It's calling out my name. Oh, it's calling. I see a black moon rising, and it's calling out my name. Oh, it's calling my name. I'm standing on the dark side of time, reaching for the power of her hand. She's waving an unholy light and calls from Lucifer's land. I see a black moon rising, and it's calling out my name. Oh, it's calling my name.
Black Moon, the B-side from Eternal Idol, not the Headless Cross version. And before that, we had The Fallen from the Born Again album. Both unreleased, and I hope you dug them both. And that's it, my friends. This is the end of another Vieira Vault. I'll have another one next week. Yes, I got many episodes in the can to play you all for the upcoming weeks. Got plenty, and I'm working on more now. I got something booked for today, for later today, so it's just going to keep rolling and rolling. When is it going to stop? I don't know, man, but I know for the next few months, you're going to have new episodes each and every Sunday. So thank you all that are listening to me now. I always have to say that at the very end, because those that listen to the very end, you fucking rule very hard. So, till next week, everybody, schmack 'em a gob.